And I actually think that's a good way to transition to Rob Dillingham because I was a
Mhm.
little worried early, not going to lie, Evan. A little
Yeah.
bit worried, not like terrified. If he had a bad summer league, I wouldn't, run around with my head falling off and say he's done for. Minnesota whiffed on the pick. I wouldn't have done that, but it would have definitely been something that would put a little bit of butterflies in my belly going into the season. But I thought he took steps forward every single game in the summer league, and I think that last game he played against the Phoenix Suns, a team that we just keep beating in every facet, even in
Yep.
trade negotiations. I thought he showed great signs. I want to hear what you think.
Yeah, I was very worried about Rob Dillingham before we went into summer league, and I know people again are always like, "You gave up on a." Nobody gave up on Rob Dillingham. We didn't give up on him with the Daily Wolves. He's not been given up on, but I think we're concerned. I think the turnovers were a very, very, very concerning factor with Rob. And what we saw in the first, game or so is the turnovers were a problem. And then he started playing better towards the end of summer league. And like you said, he has that game 4 where he just absolutely explodes. He had 23 points, like 7 assists or something to end the game. Just incredible. And he won the game by himself. If you go rewatch that game, I can tell you what, the Minnesota Timberwolves would not have won that game without his performance. He was the MVP. I thought he was the best player on both sides of the ball. He was absolutely incredible. And the flashes and what he gave you. And the crazy part is about everything, he did most of his damage in the last 2 quarters of the game. And I think that showing, I mean, he had 11 points at halftime, ends with 23. Think about that. Most of his points, they came in the third quarter. He just erupted out of control. And I think that is the Rob Dillingham that the Timberwolves hoped they were getting. And I think he looked a lot of times. Rob looks like we all see him. He's got the nickname Shifty for a reason. And he's a super agile, shifty out there. He's doing all these tricks. And I think the way he moves sometimes, he gets too fancy with it and he turns it over because he's too fancy with it. Dances a little bit too much. Things are he moves too fast for himself sometimes and it surprises him. And I think what I saw in the second half is him play at the speed that he could play at. The game looked like it slowed down to him for a few quarters, and he was just playing at this level where he was the only one in that realm, and he was controlling everything. He was assisting, and they were amazing passes into tight windows. If you go watch it, some of the passes are NBA. They're like not just NBA passes. Those are point guard passes that are made by all-star caliber players. I mean, not just anybody makes it. So what it showed me is this guy has the star upside, and you see it right there. And that's what the Wolves see. That's why he was the 8th pick. It's why he was considered the second best guard coming out of the NBA draft that year. He flashed, and he looked in that game like an absolute all-star and looked like somebody in the future that if he puts that together consistency, because I think that is what Rob's missing is that consistent play, but he can do that even at an average level. Minnesota is sitting really good because that's a starting level point guard right there.
I'm going to say something super ironic, I think, for both media perception and just fans who've watched the team. Because Anthony Edwards is the face of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Before Anthony Edwards, the Timberwolves were the butt of every joke, which is why this show is Hall of Fame mode fandom, because this fan base has gone through a lot of nonsense during multiple iterations. But the Minnesota Timberwolves today are very, very, very mature, very stable, very
100%.
meats and potatoes. Chris Finch has just pounded that culture into the Minnesota Timberwolves. And people wonder why Rob Dillingham didn't play on the, I suppose, stable Minnesota Timberwolves now. Is that reason what you mentioned? His game isn't very grounded yet. Rob Dillingham, you see the flashes, right? You see the magic. He went 8th overall as a 170-pound guard because he has superpowers, plain and simple. And you see those superpowers. But like you mentioned, the game just hasn't been set. He doesn't have that clear just balance yet between how to leverage your playmaking to get your scoring. He doesn't control a game yet.
Mhm.
And that was the number one thing I was looking for when Summer League began. How does Rob Dillingham control the game? Because when he first came into the scene earlier in the year, when they played Houston, Boston, he had that run, he was really impressive.
Yeah, Utah.
Yep, that Utah game. And then after that, it just fell off when the team got healthier and the margin for error was smaller for him. And you didn't see that control. You didn't see that balance. And I was really worried about that because first game, he's getting buckets and he's making fun reads, right? He
Mhm.
can push the pace. He has a lot of just velocity and just variety with the angles and English he can put on the ball. And it looks amazing when it works. But when it doesn't work, it looks awful. And when you mix it all together, it hasn't been super, meats and potatoes yet, which is what you need to be. It's why Mike Conley can start in the conference finals and shoot 21% in the conference finals.
Yeah.
As much as I love Mike Conley, the reason why he works on the Timberwolves and why the analytics love Mike Conley, despite the regression he had last year, is the fact that he's a meats and potatoes point guard. He just simply just sets up the table. He makes sure everybody gets to their spots and he's moving and he can hit an open three. That's still the reality. Rob Dillingham, the last couple of games, I saw somebody who took steps toward that point guard who can both be dynamic, flashy, both is not the right word, who can all in one be that dynamic, flashy guard, but also control the game. We saw steps toward that games too. I thought he really passed the ball well game 3, made Shannon look good a lot of times, made other players, he made Leonard Miller look good a lot. But then that last game was incredible because he had all the pressure on him.
Mhm.
No Tanner Shannon. And he's getting swarmed by 6'8" Ryan Dunn with a Kamal Malwatch paying extra attention to him. And anytime he escaped a pick and roll, you had multiple long arms just roaming like 7'5". Rasheer Fleming, who half the fan base wanted, he had a lot of tough looks. And he struggled that first half scoring the ball. But I was still thinking he's struggling, but he's making the right read almost every time. Then that second half happens. They put Tristan Newton next to him, and I think that's a great sign because I think he's better next to a high-level ball handler. And when Tristan Newton becomes Anthony Edwards, that can be exciting. But he just completely controlled the game. He attacked. He was fearless. He was able to finally put together, I can get to the rim whenever I want. If they collapse, I can move the ball. If I need to hit a tough jumper late in the game, I can. He hit that step back 3. He just controlled the game and he led that comeback. And that is the Rob Dillingham Minnesota needs. The guy who, number one, can set the table when he's not scoring. It's okay. Keep setting the table. And then once the pressure kind of relieves itself and he needs to be Rob Dillingham, the flashy, just combo-ish guard, he can do that. I think that Suns game was so important because we didn't see Rob Dillingham really take over the summer league. And then he had that chance to take over, and he did it without the playmaking, just losing its touch. And I think that's the number one thing. The Timberwolves don't have Malcolm Brogdon right now. They
Mhm.
don't have, Damian Lillard, or they don't have a clear starting point guard. If Rob Dillingham's going to be that starting point guard, he needs to have that little Mike Conley in him and still control the game late. And I think that Suns game was very much a step in the right direction.
If he does that and he becomes a high level player and plays at a level that we think he can achieve, and we now know what TJ is going to be. I mean, look, you're looking at a team who was in the NBA Finals last year, just hands down. The Timberwolves are going to go to the finals, and that sounds like it's crazy, but that team is so good that if you add 2 players that dynamically can get to the rim and play make at that high of a level, there it is, man. That's kind of some of the things they were missing. I do think, one thing I will say too was awesome about Rob, and we got to give him a shout out as well, is the defensive effort is just incredible. I mean, he is trying his ass off on the defensive end all summer league, and it was even better this time than it was in the regular season, and significantly better than a year ago in summer league. And I noticed it. Also, I will add this too: Rob Dillingham looks, as he should, he looks way thicker, way more muscle, way built up. I mean, you interviewed him, you were up close, but he just looks significantly bigger and bulkier, which he's going to need if he wants to develop into an average defender. But I think the best part about Rob is certain players, they don't make it. We just watched Josh Minot exit the team. And one of the things that's different between the two is I believe there's a difference in the maturity There's a difference. The way they approach things, Rob's work ethic is incredible, and you hear about it from anybody I've talked to. Rob has spent so many hours in the gym all year correcting his shot. His form looks significantly better in person than it did last year. He spent the whole season changing his jumper and working on it, working on things with the coaches. And you can really just see how everything and how much Rob cares. He really, really wants to play. He wants to be out there hooping all the time. He cares so much. He's always in the gym. He's kind of a gym rat, and he's doing all those things. And he's just, his interviews, the way he is with the media, how mature he is. His teammates love him. And I think you saw that natural connection in those games with the guy who might be playing alongside of him in the future. And that's the Timberwolves drafted in Johan Berenger.
Yeah, and great mention, by the way, because we will transition to him soon. And I just want to say with Rob Dillingham,
yeah,
there's so much pressure on both Shannon and Dillingham next year. Because in the ideal world, both of them are replacing 2 top 6 guys in the rotation. Mike Conley, ideally, Rob Dillingham can surpass Mike Conley next year. Terrence Shannon Jr., you hope he surpasses Nikhil, who just signed a $60+ million contract. You're hoping these two can make up for that ground and then some, and those two have a skill set that should add to this team what those two lack, because Nikhil and Conley at this point, they struggle creating under pressure. That should be Dillingham and Shannon's strength. When defenses get up on you, they have the creation chops to do something about that, and that's what the Timberwolves lacked last year. And we've talked about the point guard position so much. I know half of my shows have been about the point guard position, but they haven't added a point guard right now. They haven't added a Malcolm Brogdon. They didn't add a Dennis Schroeder. They didn't add Damian Lillard. They didn't add a free agent guard. So you have Mike Conley, Rob Dillingham, and I've made the case for Terrence Shannon starting because we don't have a point guard. So Rob Dillingham, if Minnesota wants to go far, he needs to be a part of it. If Terrence Shannon is a part of it, Minnesota will go far. Minnesota needs those two to take a big step, which is a lot to ask for year 2 players, but Minnesota's counting on that, and actions speak louder than words. Their silence spoke everything. They brought everybody back, and the only difference in the rotation is likely getting the 2024 draft class guys in. So I think it's good that we've had net positive takeaways from Summer League, because they need those two to show up. If they don't show up, the West is so good. That could be the difference between the 3rd seed and the 9th seed in the Western Conference. So it's just incredible how much pressure is on those two to take a leap next year.
100%. I think the last thing I want to say about Dillingham is just super quick here. He's got to finish better at the rim. He's god awful finishing at the rim. That's something that I thought he did decent when he was in Kentucky. It was horrible last year. He has to, again, take the turnovers, get that under control. You just can't have turnovers, and you got to finish at the rim because he's so good at breaking down defenses and getting there. That's where he's got to improve. Those are key things if he wants to, stick and be, eventually the starting point guard for your Wolves.
And to finish the the Rob Dillingham conversation, I am not 100% of Rob Dillingham is ready next year. I'm not ready. That
I'm not sold on it either right now.
There are good signs, but Dillingham started slow and he ended pretty good. He didn't take over the Summer League like Ron Holland or Kyle Filipowski did. So there's still questions there. Positive signs at the end, but there's a lot to learn. I mean, I wanted to see a middle game there. I wanted to see a floater. Didn't see that. I love the way he finished that last game attacking 7'2" Kamal Malwatch, but there's still a lot of questions. I have more questions about Shannon than Dillingham right now, or less questions about Shannon than Dillingham. So it's just a matter of how much does Dillingham take advantage of these last 6-7 weeks, I think, until training camp, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe 8 weeks, something like that. But it'll be interesting.